Hi friends, E.C. Maltby here, senior pastor of the True Holiness Saints Center in the beautiful city of Conway, Arkansas. And you know what time it is Wednesday Word time. But right before I go to our Wednesday Word tonight, I hope all of you enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. For those of you that don't know, Labor Day is a federal holiday that comes the first Monday of every September. Labor Day is here to recognize the many contributions of Americans in the workforce and their contributions to our national economy. So when I think about that we just had Labor Day, I thought that it would be appropriate to give you a Wednesday word entitled work. More specifically, I want to talk to you about having a strong work ethic. So the question tonight immediately becomes, what is a strong work ethic, Pastor Maltby? And a simple definition for a strong work ethic is simply this: a strong belief in laboring diligently. A strong belief in laboring diligently. When we talk about laboring diligently, we're talking about being committed to the job you're assigned. We're talking about being committed to get the job done in a reasonable amount of time. In fact, let me give you your social media quote for tonight. What is our social media quote, Pastor Maltby? It is simply a statement or a thesis that we challenge you to put out on all of your social media platforms. And here it is: let your job performance speak for you. Yeah, when it comes to strong work ethic, always let your job performance speak for you. You don't have to argue. You don't have to debate. You don't have to have disputes about raises and promotions. Simply let your work ethic, your job performance speak for you. So as we think about the Labor Day holiday weekend that we just had, as we think about having a strong work ethic, I want to give you 3 tips that will help you to maximize your work ethic. 3 tips that will help you to maximize having a strong work ethic. So if you're writing to notes tonight, write this down. Point number 1, know why you're there. Yeah, know why you're on your job. Always remember, dear hearts, unrealistic expectations always lead to frustration. Unrealistic expectations always lead to disappointment and hurt feelings. You don't want to become a disgruntled employee, and that will happen if you have unrealistic expectations. Therefore, it's important for you to talk to your employer and find out what they expect from you. And you can also tell them what you expect from them, because unrealistic expectations always lead to frustration, disappointment, and hurt feelings. And the most common expectation you can have at any job is proper compensation. Yeah, you can expect your job to pay you a predetermined wage, proper compensation. The truth of the matter is this: many of us go to work simply because it is a necessity. Yeah, a necessity. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says it like this: for even when we were with you, we gave you this one rule: if a man will not work, he shall not eat. Yes, one of the primary reasons to go to work, dear hearts, is because we got bills to pay. And one thing I know for sure about our God, He doesn't want us feeling sorry for lazy people. Now, I'm not talking about disabled people. I'm not talking about people who legitimately have reasons that they cannot work. But God doesn't want us feeling sorry for lazy people. Again, Paul says, if a man will not work, he shall not eat. In other words, what God is really saying to us through Paul is this: don't feel sorry for lazy people when they get a shutoff notice. Don't feel sorry for lazy people when they get evicted. Don't feel sorry for lazy people when their vehicle gets repoed. Why? Because if a healthy person refuses to work, they should not eat. They shouldn't get compensation. We work at a job because we have needs. We got bills to pay. So as you begin to think about having a strong work ethic, you need to remember why you're on that job in the first place. Because you got bills to pay, and they have promised a predetermined wage to pay those bills. But then secondly, when we talk about having a strong work ethic, I want to encourage you to expand your capacity for diverse people. Let me say that again. If you're going to have a strong work ethic, not only do you need to know why you're at a job, but you've got to expand your capacity for diverse people. If you want to excel in the workplace, you have to learn to work with people who don't necessarily look like you, who don't necessarily think like you, and who don't necessarily have the same personal preferences that you have. You have got to learn how to work with a diverse group of people. Our God doesn't want us to be one-dimensional. Our God doesn't want us to be short-sighted. God wants us to be able to expand our circle of influence and be able to work with a diverse group of people. I love the way the Apostle Paul puts it in 2 Timothy 2:20. In 2 Timothy 2:20, Paul begins to talk about diversity of people. He says, in a large house, or we can say in a large organization, there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. And guess what? Some of those are for noble purposes. Noble purposes. In other words, there are going to be people in a large organization that are noble. People that have good integrity, people who have strong character, people who have a good work ethic. But the Bible goes on and says, but there are also some that don't have a noble purpose. In a large organization, you'll find some people with lack of integrity, in small organizations too, for that matter. You'll find some people that are hard to get along with. You'll find some people with a poor work ethic that are simply lazy. But you're going to have both groups of people sometimes in the same organization. A general rule of thumb is this: the larger the organization, the more diverse its participants are. And as Christians, we have to learn to work with people we like and people we really don't care for. Yes, we love everybody, but there's some folks that we just don't like to be around. But as ambassadors for Christ, as men and women that God has put on this earth to let our light shine in dark work environments, we've got to learn how to let our light shine around people who are hard to love. We've got to learn to expand our capacity for diverse groups of people. So when you begin to think about this Labor Day celebration that we just had a few days ago, when we begin to think about having a strong work ethic, number one, we got to know why we're on the job. And it is primarily because we have a predetermined wage they're paying us. But secondly, as Christians, we've got to enlarge or expand our capability of dealing with diverse groups of people, even people that are hard to work with. And here's the third one, and I'm out of here. You got to remember, or you've got to know who you work for. That is so critically important, to know who you work for. Let's go back to the Apostle Paul in Colossians. chapter 3 and verse 23. Paul says it like this: whatever you do, in other words, whether you work in the home or outside of the home, whether you're a blue collar or white collar worker, whether you are an employee or an employer, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not men. Ultimately, ma'ams and sirs, we're not working for the company. We're not working for our supervisor. We're not working for our clientele. But ultimately, we are working for God. And once you realize this principle, that you're ultimately working for God and not some individuals, then the way you feel about your supervisor will no longer negatively impact your job performance. Maybe I need to say that again. When you finally realize that I'm working for the Lord, not this company, when you finally realize that I'm working for the Lord, not this person, then how you feel about the person will no longer negatively impact your job performance, because you're trying to please God, not the company. You're trying to please God, not your supervisor. You're trying to please God, not your coworker or your clientele. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, because you're working to the Lord and not unto man. And when you finally get that principle, there are 3 things that are guaranteed to happen in your life. And I'll close with these. Number 1, you will become a dependable employee. Dependable. In other words, when you say you're going to do something, you're going to always be a man or woman of your word, because you promised it to God, not just the company. You gave your word to God and not just your coworker or your supervisor. You will become a dependable person. That means even when no one is watching you, you can count on, or you can be counted on for being responsible in your work. So number 1, you become dependable. Secondly, when you realize you're working for God and not man, you no longer lie. Did you hear that? When you know you're working for God and not the person on the other end of the phone, you won't call in and say you're sick when you're not sick. When you know you're working for God and not just that supervisor or company, you won't say you did something positive when you know you were not the person who did it. When you're working for God and not just a coworker or with a coworker, you won't lie. You're not going to lie about being sick. You're not going to lie about work you didn't do. And you're not going to pass the blame on anybody else when you know full and well that it was your mistake. Yeah, when you realize that I'm working for God, I'm not going to lie about my mistakes and try to blame somebody else. I own my responsibilities. So number 1, you're dependable. Yes. Number 2, you do not lie. And the third one I'll just throw in: you don't steal. When you realize you're working for God and not just this company, you won't take things from your place of employment that don't belong to you, no matter how big or how small. You don't have this mindset that they owe me this, so I'm going to take it. Because Christians don't steal. You don't steal items from the job, and you don't steal time from the clock. When you realize you're truly working for God and not man, you don't stay 15 minutes extra on your break. You don't beat the clock by taking an extended lunch period and not making it up. Why? Because Christians don't steal from their employer, who is ultimately God. Yes, this past weekend, we celebrated the federal holiday Labor Day, a time that the entire country recognizes the contributions of Americans in the workforce and in our overall economy. For that reason, our Wednesday word is work. More specifically, it is having a strong work ethic. And if you want to be motivated to have a strong work ethic, you got to know why you're working. You've got to expand your capacity for diverse people. And ultimately, you got to know who you're working for. Ma'ams and sirs, ultimately, we're working for our God. Be blessed.